Hello everybody, thank you very much for joining me today for another Twilight Zone video in my Twilight Zone ranking series where I rank every episode of the original Twilight Zone from my least favorite to my favorite. Today I'm going to be talking about number 135 on the list, Nervous Man in a $4 Room, written by Rod Serling and directed by Douglas Hayes. This is a season 2 episode, very early season 2 in fact, and there will be episode spoilers. So the premise of this episode is there's a man named Jackie and he's a small-time criminal. And he kind of comes at a crossroads in his life, I guess you would say, where he must decide whether to commit a very serious crime or not. And his conscience comes out like another side of him and starts talking to him through a mirror. And I have to say, this is probably the most average Twilight Zone episode I've ever seen. Like, it's not great, but it's also not bad. Joe Mantell is very good in the lead. He pretty much has to carry this episode by himself. There is another character, the man he works under, who briefly appears, but this is mostly a one-man show, and he does a convincing job. The mirror effects are also impressive, especially for 60s TV. I like how he kind of talks to himself in the mirror. I thought this was done pretty well. The character of Jackie is somewhat interesting and the dialogue's pretty good, but the episode is kind of repetitive and there's just not much plot to this episode. Not much really happens. You know, it's kind of interesting, the conflict, how it builds between the two sides of them, but the ending is kind of predictable as well. So again, it's just okay. There is also kind of a side plot where the gentleman that Jackie works under wants him to perform this crime, but nothing really happens. It's kind of more just there to progress the plot between the two parts of Jackie. I maybe would have liked some more details on this part of the episode, on the crime itself. And then, basically the ending is pretty predictable. Like, the good side, or the better side of him, the more confident side, kind of just takes over and leaves the weaker side behind. So I guess this is a good ending for the character of Jackie, but I almost kind of think this is an episode where a darker end might have been more interesting, where maybe the side of Jackie that was already in control maybe stayed in control. That maybe kind of would have been a more interesting way to go, a more interesting twist, but they chose to go with the more conventional positive ending, which I guess is kind of fine as well. So like I said, this episode is kind of interesting, but it's also kind of just there. Not too much really happens. It's a decent character study, but I don't have any strong feelings on it one way or the other. Just kind of an average episode. It's okay. So that's why Nervous Man in a $4 Room comes in at 135. As always, feel free to leave a comment on whether you think I, rank this episode maybe too high, too low, or just right. Next up will be episode number 134. As always, thanks for your continued support, and thank you very much for watching.